Silver Dollar City is one of my favorite parks I've visited. Everything about this park is high quality, from the shops, theming, and the topic of this video, coaster collection. Even though the coaster lineup is small, it is high quality, and the top 2 is controversial among coaster enthusiasts. This is my ranking of the coasters at Silver Dollar City. Number 7, the Grand Exposition Coaster. While I haven't ridden this specific coaster, I have ridden a clone of this kiddie coaster at Hershey Park. My experience was to be expected from a kiddie coaster. It's small and slow like most kiddie coasters. There are some laterals on the tight helix, but very minimal with that. It's a good starter coaster, but nothing more. Number 6, Fire in the Hole. What a strange coaster. This is the oldest coaster of the park, built back in 1972. Fire in the Hole is a family coaster, but one of my favorites due to the unique experience. The entire ride is in a building and has a lot of weird scenes with lighting effects. After all of these scenes leads to the climax of the ride. 3 drops finish off the coaster, the first being my favorite. For some reason, the back car repeatedly bounces up and down before diving down the drop. It is a weird sensation. The second drop is fun, as a railroad train rockets toward the coaster as it drops. The last drop is the weirdest. A man shouts "Fire in the Hole" as the train drops into a splashdown. It is a weird ending to a weird but thrilling family coaster. There aren't any forces, it's just pure fun. None of the rides at this park are bad. Number 5, Thunderation. This has got to be my favorite mine train I've ridden. Kind of weird how Missouri has the best mine train and the worst mine train. Thunderation is definitely a terrain coaster, as the lift hill is at the very end of the ride. The entire coaster is flying around a forest, with trees on all sides. Straight out of the station is a curved drop before turning to the other direction and diving back down. All of these first turns lead into a massive double helix. This double helix kind of reminds me of the helix on Holiday World's Legend. There isn't a lot of banking, so the entire turn provides sustained lateral forces. Surprisingly, this older mine train is very smooth. I was expecting a rougher ride considering that this is a mine train, but this felt like a new B&M with the smoothness. After the helix is a loud tunnel before another speedy low-to-the-ground turn. This then goes into the very long lift hill that takes the train up the hill. The finale is kind of underwhelming, but still fun. A twisted drop leads into a pretty intense valley, which turns into the brakes. Overall, I was pleasantly surprised by Thunderation. Number 4, Powder Keg. This coaster has quite an interesting backstory. Powder Keg actually started as a coaster called Buzzsaw Falls, and was a Premier Rides water coaster. After that ride failed, S&S renovated the ride by removing some track, but keeping some old track. They added new track, so the ride actually switches from S&S to Premier track halfway through, so Powder Keg has a very weird layout. After departing from the station, the train enters a track that moves over so the train lines up with the air launch. After the countdown, the train accelerates in a very intense manner that really makes riders' stomachs turn. The train rockets up into a quick, sustained ejector airtime hill before dropping down another hill. These first 3 elements, the third being another sustained ejector hill, are very intense and fun. And if the ride continued the streak of good elements, it would probably be in the top 2 of the park. But the ride's biggest flaw is during these next few elements. All of these following overbanks and drawn-out turns are very jerky on the exits and entrances. It's not painful, just uncomfortable. If you are a bigger person, you might enjoy this ride more as you won't be jerked around as much, but I am smaller, so I was jerked around quite a bit. The turns are forceful under the lift hill, though. Speaking of the lift, after the drawn-out Premier Rides turn, the train enters a short lift hill that brings the train into the air. The finale of the ride is a fun drop and a forceful but jerky helix into the brake run. Most of the elements are forceful, especially the beginning, which is why this is still a great ride to me. It just would have been a lot better if the finale wasn't so underwhelming and the middle wasn't so jerky. Number 3, Wildfire. This is the roller coaster where I was evacuated from the lift hill on my first time around. We did get to ride this later in the day though, and I am glad we got this credit, as it was a very fun coaster. First of all, this ride's setting is perfect. It sits on top of a hill overlooking Branson and a massive lake. This B&M sit-down is one of the most intense B&Ms I've ridden, as the entire ride has many tight valleys and whippy elements, all with a pretty smooth experience. After a turn at the top of the lift hill, the ride dives down a large drop. This entire ride has a small vibration, which could be a bit annoying, but it won't ruin the experience. After the drop is a huge Immelman, which is pretty forceful in the valley and provides a bit of hang time, but not a lot. After the Immelman is a loop, which again has a bit of force. After a quick turn is the most intense part of the ride, a very fast and whippy cobra roll that might cause some headbanging if you aren't prepared for it, but it is my favorite part of the ride because of the snappy transitions. The ride takes another turn into the bumpiest part of the ride because of the speed. This is still a very fun element, but it has some headbanging. The corkscrew whips the train rapidly before entering the finale. A tight, positive-filled helix leads into the most surprising element. The entrance into the final brake run provides a surprisingly strong pop of ejector airtime. Overall, Wildfire is an intense and whippy coaster that everyone should try. We now enter the top 2, which is a controversial topic for enthusiasts, as both of these coasters are great. On my list of everything I've ridden, number 2 is only one spot away from number 1. That is how close these rides are. But my number 2 is Outlaw Run. This was my most anticipated coaster of my Missouri trip, and it did not disappoint. All RMCs are great, and Outlaw Run was no exception. While it is definitely rougher than the others, it was still very smooth. It just had one little rattle here and there. The only really bad part was the pothole at the bottom of the drop, which can really catch you off guard. The lift hill has a small dip in it before going down the drop, which builds some extra momentum for the sustained floater dive. After the drop is a tight turn leading into a stall, which whips riders upside down in an aggressive manner. This entire ride is in the trees, which makes it impossible to see from the paths. After another turn and 2 ejector hills is a very intense overbank turn. A sustained wave turn and ejector pop lead into the double barrel roll finale, providing some decent whip and hang time. This ride is relentless from start to finish. It is so forceful and whippy that it may be surprising it isn't number 1. But for me, number 1 is Time Traveler. Time Traveler is one of the most unique coasters, and is one of only 2 extreme spinning coasters on the planet. This is one of my favorite coaster experiences ever, as every single ride is a different experience. The back row is a place to sit for all of the whippy elements and of course that 90-degree drop straight out of the station. The back row surprisingly provides a feeling similar to your first time on a hydraulic launch on the drop. After the drop are many incredible elements on a spinning coaster, including a dive loop, 2 launches, a loop, and a 0G roll. One of the most insane elements is a twisted airtime hill. The reason this element is so crazy is because of the outward-facing seats. You are hit with negative Gs while being thrusted forward and to the side. It provides every force at once, which is very rare. Every element is disorienting and thrilling. Nothing can match the insanity and uniqueness of Time Traveler, which makes it my favorite coaster of my Missouri coaster trip. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Email me with questions or concerns, and comment your favorite coaster at Silver Dollar City. Have a great rest of your day.